What's going on, everyone? This is skycedi and welcome back to another video. And in today's video, I want to talk about fitting into both cultures as a biracial person. Now, this video is partly inspired by a question that I recently got on my Instagram, and the question that was asked went along the lines of which culture or which side is harder for you to fit in. So instead of answering that question on Instagram, where I felt like my time would be a little limited and I wouldn't be able to express my thoughts clearly, I decided to make this video. So yeah, we're gonna dive into that and my thoughts about that. But first, if you don't know who I am or you happen to stumble across this video, my name is Cedric. I am a Black and Korean man currently living in South Korea, and this channel is about Korean culture and my experiences here in Korea. So if you're new here and you're into that sort of thing, definitely consider subscribing, and if you do, hit that notification bell. Okay, so let's talk about this topic. I feel like there are so many different layers to this, and I'm not even sure if I can totally articulate my experiences in a way that does it justice, but I'm certainly gonna try. Growing up multicultural, representing two different races and cultures, was definitely a very rich experience, but it also came with it some challenges. And those challenges were partly internal and then partly external. Now, I grew up in the South in the United States. I grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and it was actually a military town, so we had a pretty diverse population. We had many different types of people and different types of cultures. Some that I felt like were a little bit more prominent were African Americans. We also had a lot of Caucasians, and we had a lot of Hispanics. And we also had a good handful of Asians. We had a pretty diverse city, pretty diverse area that I grew up in. You know, and I've mentioned in other videos that I never really grew up with a lot of racism or discrimination. I've had my share of it, but nothing on a grand scale, and I attribute that mostly to the area that I grew up, growing up in and around a military base. So that was the context that I grew up. If you haven't seen any of my other videos where I talk about my story or talk about some of the challenges of being Black and Korean, definitely check out some of the videos that I'll link in the description below, and then that way you can kind of see how I grew up. But for this video, I want to talk about which culture I feel like I fit in with more. And then also, in addition, I want to talk about which culture I feel like accepts me more as their own. Let's see, the first question, which culture do I feel like I fit in with more? I can say this, when I was growing up, when I was a lot younger, up until maybe middle school, I didn't have this really deep concept of culture or race. I just kind of grew up in a multicultural household, and I just thought it was normal. I thought it was just life, right? I didn't make this vast distinction between cultures and races with different people when I was growing up in elementary school. I had Black friends, white friends, Hispanic friends, and of course Korean friends. It wasn't until middle school and high school where, you know, those distinctions became more clear, and I began to realize that, one, I looked different, right? I looked different from my Black friends, and I looked different from my Korean friends as a result of being mixed. And that on the surface was kind of like the first layer, you know, being accepted because of how you looked, right? We live in a world where people judge a book by its cover. You know, I do it too. I'm guilty of it too. I try not to, but you know, it kind of happens, right? You kind of see something on the outside and you kind of make a quick judgment. And I've went through my share of that when it comes to people putting me in a box and putting a label on me based on how I look. They would say, oh, he doesn't look Korean, so he fits in more with the Black people. And sometimes on the Black side, the same thing. Oh, he doesn't look completely Black, so he's kind of like the token Asian. So I went through both of these. I feel like growing up, if I had to choose which side I felt like embraced me more and accepted me more as their own, I would have to probably go with the African American side. As African Americans, most of us are mixed with something. Many of us have a little bit of Caucasian in our bloodline. A lot of us have Native American blood, which happens to be the case with me because my grandfather on my dad's side was part Cherokee Indian. And because we know that our genes do come from different places outside of just Africa if you go down our genetic pool or genetic line. So I think that has a big role to play in it. So growing up, I felt like I was embraced more by my African American friends as being an African American. Again, I would have those occurrences where people would make fun of me because I'm part Asian, but again, if I had to choose, it would be that side. But in my older years, it's been my experience where now that I'm living in Korea, this is a whole nother world here, right? We're talking about a very homogenous society, one of the most homogenous societies in the world. Not only is Korea a national society where people who are Korean citizens are Korean nationals, but they are also ethnically Korean, with very little genetic outside influence compared to other people groups. So here, the idea of race and being a national is a little bit more tied together, and it's almost harder for Koreans to separate that. And so I think that's why many times, especially in the older generations, it's hard for Korean people to accept that a half Korean or a mixed blood Korean, as they would call it, could be just like them, could be accepted as 100% Korean. But here's the cool thing that I've noticed. With the younger generation of Koreans who find out that I am half Korean and they can connect with me through their Korean perspective, in other words, they can communicate with me in Korean, they can approach me as a Korean, they have a much easier time accepting me as one of their own. We don't really talk about our differences. We focus on our similarities, and that's some of the things that I've noticed with the younger generations of Koreans. We're talking people my age or even younger, and we're talking the people that I have befriended during my time here. And that's been interesting because I didn't know what to expect after I moved here, but that's been the case so far. Now, again, those are based on my experiences. You know, there's another thing that I just thought of. When you look in the media, right? When you look at different African American influencers who are either musical artists or they are actors or actresses or whatnot, if they are mixed and maybe half black or part black and part something else, a lot of times the media will classify them as black. This is a black artist or a black musician, black actress. And some of the people that come to mind are like Halle Berry, Prince, and Mariah Carey. You have these different artists who are considered black artists or black entertainers, but you know, in reality, they're mixed. And I'm not saying that's a bad label, but we've kind of gotten accustomed to labeling these black artists or these mixed race artists as black. I think it kind of makes it easier for us to accept them as black people, right? In Korea, I think it's a little bit different with the labels because let's just say you take a mixed race entertainer, you have someone like the young model Han Hyunmin, who is black and Korean. You take other artists who have come up, you know, over the past couple of years and also the past couple of decades. Many times they're labeled as a half Korean or a mixed Korean. I think Korea still kind of has a long way to go to really just openly accept these mixed race Koreans as one of their own. Without having any strings attached. But yeah, I think Korea is moving forward in the right direction. It's probably gonna take a little while, honestly, because I think once these mixed families begin to really become a little bit more prominent here in this country, that would become more of the norm, to accept them as Korean because they're nationally Korean, right? Because a lot of kids are born here and they're raised here as mixed Koreans, they're nationally Korean, and they don't even speak English. I think it's going to get to that point where they're accepted as a Korean. So yeah, it's just an interesting thing to really think about. Honestly, I'm still swimming through this whole topic and this whole issue with my experiences, and you know, I don't have all the answers, and I don't feel like my experience is the only experience. There have been plenty of other mixed race Koreans who have had different experiences, maybe good or even bad. There have been plenty of other mixed race Koreans who either live in Korea or live in the States that have varying differences from my experience. And so I can only speak from what I know, and I am still learning and growing. But this is something that's very interesting and something that I think about. Now, as far as the question of me internally feeling like I fit in more with the black side or more with the Korean side, that is something that I don't know if I have a strong answer for just yet. On one hand, I do feel like I am part of both cultures equally. I do feel like I can get and relate to both sides in many, many ways. But at the same time, I also feel like there are certain gaps that I will probably never have filled because I am mixed. For example, I'm never gonna know what it's like to grow up in Korea as a Korean. I'm never gonna know what it's like. I'm never gonna know what it's like to grow up in school or to really work in Korea as a Korean national, as someone who is a Korean citizen. That's something I'll never know because one, I grew up in the States, and two, I'm also mixed race, and so people still view me as a foreigner. I'm always going to have that label, at least for a long time, in the eyes of Koreans in general. But again, at the end of the day, I do feel like I connect with both sides, and I don't feel like I have to justify my position just because I am mixed race and because I have two different cultures that I represent, I am who I am at the end of the day. I know what I know, I've experienced what I've experienced, and that's it. You know, I can call myself a Korean, I can call myself an African American. I don't care what people say. It is what it is. If they don't see me like that, that's okay. And you know, it's taken me, I think, a long time to come to that point in that position and to be able to say what I just said with confidence. At the end of the day, I know who I am, I know who my parents are and what they've instilled in me, and I can live my life with that, knowing that I can be confident in who I am. Okay, well, I hope that made sense, or at least part of that made sense. Yeah, hopefully you guys can understand what I go through and what I've been through a little bit better. Now, I think this is a topic that we need to discuss, and I'm very open to discussing. I'm excited to be able to bring these topics to the forefront of YouTube and really to get that dialogue going, because I think that is something that we really need in this cultural climate, because I feel like between races and cultures, there's such a misunderstanding between different sides, and there's so much hate and animosity. I want us to move past that, and I want us to talk and dialogue and really seek to understand each other. And so with that said, leave in the comments your thoughts about anything that I said, and also if you are mixed race or you have a similar experience growing up with different cultures or representing different cultures, let me know what your experience is below, and let's have a positive dialogue. So yeah, with that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys will continue to come along this journey with me. Again, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell. All right guys, I'll see you guys in the next video, and remember to always seize the day. Peace.